The Morning Tide. On hearing that, I begged him to countermand any such luxuries on my account in the future. It was my invariable habit, I assured him, to retire to bed at 10 o'clock wherever I was, reading or writing at night. I said were practices which I rigidly tabooed. Mr. Cazalet, who stood by, grimly listening, nodded approval. "Wise lad," he said. "That's another reason why I'm what I am. Don't let any mistake be made about it. The old saw, much despised and laughed at though it is, has more in it than anybody thinks for. Get to your pillow early and leave it early. That's the sure thing." "I don't think I should like to get up as early as you do, though," remarked Mr. Raven. "You certainly don't give the worms much chance." "Aye, and I've caught a few in my time," assented the old gentleman complacently, "and I hope to catch a few more yet. You folk who don't get up till the morning's half over don't know what you miss." I slept soundly that night. A strange bed and unfamiliar surroundings affect me not at all. Just as suddenly as I had dropped asleep, I woke. My windows faced due east. I was instantly aware that the sun had either risen or was just about to rise. Springing out of bed and drawing up the blind of one of the 3 tall, narrow windows of my room, I saw him mounting behind a belt of pine and fir which stretched along a bluff of land that ran down to the open sea. And I saw, too, that it was high tide. The sea had stolen up the creek, which ran right to the foot of the park, and the wide expanse of water glittered and coruscated in the brilliance of the morning glory. My watch lay on the dressing-table close by. Glancing at it, I saw that the time was 25 minutes to 7. I had been told that the family breakfasted at 9, so I had nearly 2½ hours of leisure. Of course I would go out and enjoy the freshness of the morning. I turned to the window again just to take another view of the scenery in front of the house and to decide in which direction I would go. And there, emerging from a wicket gate that opened out of an adjacent plantation, I caught sight of Mr. Cazalet. It was evident that this robust octogenarian had been taking that morning swim of which Miss Raven had told me the previous evening. He was muffled up in an old pea-jacket, various towels were festooned about his shoulders, his bald head shone in the rising sun. I watched him curiously as he came along the borders of a thick yew hedge at the side of the gardens. Suddenly, at a particular point, he stopped, and drawing something out of his towels, thrust it, at the full length of his arm, into the closely interwoven mass of twig and foliage at his side. Then he moved forward towards the house. A bushy clump of rhododendron hid him from my sight. 2 or 3 minutes later, I heard a door close somewhere near my own. Mr. Cazalet had evidently re-entered his own apartment. I was bathed, shaved, and dressed by 7:15, and finding my way out of the house, went across the garden toward the wicket gate through which I had seen Mr. Cazalet emerge. As he had come from the sea that way, it was, I concluded, the nearest way to it. My path led by the yew hedge which I have just mentioned, and I suddenly saw the place where Mr. Cazalet had stood when he thrust his arm into it. Thereabouts the ground was soft, mossy, damp. The marks of his shoes were plain. Out of mere curiosity, I stood where he had stood, and slightly parting the thick clinging twigs, peeped into the obscurity behind. And there, thrust right in amongst the yew, I saw something white, a crumpled, crushed-up lump of linen, perhaps a man's full-sized pocket handkerchief, whereon I could make out, even in that obscurity, and nothing in the way of hedges can be thicker or darker than one of old, carefully trimmed yew, brown stains and red stains, as if from contact with soil or clay in one case, with blood in the other.